wasn't sure when I was going to be ready to talk about this. Sort of a sensitive subject for me, but also there are so many details in it that I can't share. It's my story, it's my experience. There's still things that I have to keep out, so I wasn't sure when or how I would be ready to talk about it. I took a few months hiatus off of the internet in general. Didn't really post a lot on social media, didn't post any on YouTube because I went so deep into depression that I just lost motivation for everything. I've always been a little bit depressed. For as long as I can remember, I've been a bit depressed. Not like depression is new to me, you know? I've experienced it a fair chunk of my life. And when I got with my now ex-partner, I needed a lot of reassurance that I wasn't going to get up and left, you know? I needed a lot of reassurance that I was a good partner, that I did what I needed to do, all of these different things, and I got that reassurance. I always got that reassurance. I got it, and it was consistent. And you know, they say that once you get comfortable in a situation, that the universe decides to spin it on its axis. And I was really starting to believe everything was going to be fine, that I wasn't going to be left, that I was just delusional. Because I have BPD, and I don't know if you know how BPD works. Fear of abandonment and fear of not being enough, and pushing people away before they can leave you, and all of the there's a lot of different things. My ex-partner and I found out that I had it literally mid-relationship. It was about 2 years, 1 or 2 years into the relationship. The thing that I find the funniest about it, looking back, is that they made so many promises that they weren't going to abandon me, that they weren't going to leave me, that they would never stop loving me. But it took so long for me to believe it because I'm guarded. I have trauma, I have a past, I'm super guarded. I don't believe stuff like that very easily. And so it took me a while. Some would say too long. But like that's the way that's the way the disorder works. It was very jarring and traumatic. I split on my ex-partner the night before they were supposed to come over for what I now know is the last time. And it wasn't even on them, it wasn't about them, it was about something completely different. But I still don't even know if that was it, but they sent a message within the conversation and was like, the one thing I'll never do is lie to you. And then I asked them if they were thinking about leaving me, and they said no. There's other things in between that, but I can't, privacy, you know. But I believed them when they said no, and then they came to my house, texted me like nothing was wrong, came to my house, didn't come and see me, dropped off some drinks and left. And I was like, that's weird. That's very weird. And I talked to my mom, and I had this feeling in my gut, and I went into fight or flight because I knew what was happening. I knew what the switch up was about. I'm not stupid. I act stupid online, I act stupid in my other videos, I act stupid on Twitter. I'm not. good at pattern recognition, and I'm good at knowing when people are being shady. And so I freaked out. Should I have freaked out? No. I should not have freaked out. But that is how it works. I was being abandoned. I was being abandoned, and I went into fight or flight. And so I started walking to their house. Didn't even get very far before they called me. I was like, hey, you need to go back home. And then they came back to my house. I was still freaking out, and I was still going through fight or flight, but I expected a conversation at least. I expected a conversation, at least. I didn't get a conversation. I didn't get a conversation, I didn't get a reason, I didn't get an explanation. I was just freaking out, and they were apologizing, and they would not give me any answers. And then I tried to give them a hug and a kiss, and they denied the hug and a kiss, and then they left me on my hallway floor crying and begging for answers. Within the not conversation, they kept saying that they would always love me and that would never change. But I feel like if you love somebody, then you would have given them answers. And that was in October, and it is now March. I the way that I am is I cannot handle not having answers. I cannot handle when people just drop out of my life with no reason. Because I was under the assumption that everything was fine. I was under the assumption that everything was fine, and it was going to be a normal visit, and that we were going to kiss and hug and cuddle, and as far as I was aware, they weren't going to be here very long, but that was fine because I was happy to have any time with them at all. And so yeah, I was completely blindsided. I was completely blindsided by all of it. Nothing felt off. Nothing felt wrong. At the time, since going to the psych ward and since thinking it all through, there are bits and pieces that felt off that should have been an indicator that something was going to happen, but at the time, nothing felt wrong. Everything felt normal. There was no problems, there was no arguments. We had only argued like 2 or 3 times the entire relationship. I spent all of October and most of November just going downhill. I asked and I begged for answers on every single. I will admit right now that I got a bit obsessive, okay? I got a bit obsessive, and I messaged them in any way that I could on iMessage, on email, on Facebook, on Instagram, any way that I could. And it wasn't even to try and get back together, it was just because I wanted answers. Because how can you act like everything is fine and normal and dandy the day before, and then not only come to my house the day you're supposed to and avoid me altogether, but then when I freak out because you're abandoning me, you come back and just say nothing. You say nothing. You give me nothing. You give me no explanation, no reason. There's no conversation. So what else am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to think when I'm given nothing else to go off of? I convince myself that I'm this poison that needs to be neutralized. I spend literally the rest of October and majority of November just not eating, sleeping all the time, constantly crying, and at some point decided that I was going to end my life. I had a plan. I had written letters. I had written my last diary entry at that time. I had a date set. I was ready. At the time, I was ready to go. Everybody ever that cared about me convinced me to get help instead. Again, there's a lot of stuff in between that I can't share because privacy reasons. I don't care what the reason is anymore. It could be anything. It could be me, it could be them, it could be a problem that they didn't feel comfortable vocalizing. I don't care anymore. It's the fact that I was left without a reason. They did the one thing that they promised they wouldn't do, which was abandon me. Moving on. I'm getting over it. I'm making a life for myself. I am in a different relationship. I'm in a throuple actually, and it's great. It's going amazing. I have a future up in my noggin here. I'm on meds now. I'm recording this March 3rd. Don't know when it's gonna get, out there, but it is what it is. I have an outlook on life. But I think that we need to acknowledge that the way that it was done was traumatic. You can look at this and you can be like, oh, you're just being a little dramatic, you're just being a big old sensitive baby. I was dating this person for almost 3 years. I thought that I knew this person inside and out. Their family loved me. My family loved them. We were engaged. We were talking about getting married. A week or so before it happened, we were talking about telling their parents that we'd gotten engaged on our anniversary. That was an entire month and 7 days from the date that they abandoned me. It wasn't just a regular, oh, there's differences, so you broke up. It was I thought everything was fine, and they decided to just up and leave. I think that the main takeaway from this is that if you are friends with somebody or know somebody or are dating somebody that has BPD and you don't want to be in their lives anymore, sit down and have a conversation with them. Have a conversation, because most people with BPD have way too much empathy. I would have understood if I would have sat down and was like, all right, here's the problem areas, here's why we can't be together anymore, I'm so sorry. I would have understood, and it would have been okay, and I would have moved on way faster, and I wouldn't have gone insane. When you find a problem in a relationship, especially with somebody with BPD, if you find a problem in a relationship with somebody and you don't vocalize that problem and either one, try to fix it, or two, make it known that the problem can't be fixed, and so the only other option is to split, and instead you, without the other person's knowledge, just decide, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, and then just fucking dip. The takeaway is that you need to be an adult, and you need to be responsible for your emotions, and you need to grow a spine and sit down and talk. Have a difficult adult conversation. If my ex ever sees this, doubt it, but if my ex ever sees this, the takeaway for you is that it was fun while it lasted, and you were a really good lesson. I hope that whatever peace you got from abandoning me was worth it in the end. Yeah, that's it. I know it's pretty dry for story time, but again, there's a lot of things that happened in between the abandonment and the going to the psych ward that is just, I can't share because privacy stuff, and I am not like that. So thank you for watching, and